I always believe as Jews we wear multiple hats. From our Jewish hat to our secular hat, our professions, another hat, our lives, our personal lives at home. And for our rabbis, they understood that worldview too. So in Parshat Shoftim, it's quite fascinating. The opening part of the parasha speaks to us about judges who are supposed to be righteous to prevent making a rush to judgment before they issue some type of ruling. And then immediately, it's almost one of those multiple hats. It talks about trees. We have righteous judges, and then we have trees. And as we know in Judaism, we're supposed to love trees. And apparently for B'nai Mitzvahs, one of the certificates, a tree is planted in one's name in the state of Israel. And we always say, you can't find a tree, but you can plant your roots. Oh, I thought that would be delivered better. Okay. But in this particular case, Shoftim, these trees are not the good trees. They're worried about if we take a tree and we make it into an Averah, some type of idolatry. And for those who study with me at Torah study, what is the number one sin according to our rabbis? Idolatry. That's right, idolatry. Has l'sholem, idolatry, idolatry, idolatry. So we have a bit of a paradox here. We're supposed to have righteous judges. We're supposed to love trees. And once we get to the war laws in Deuteronomy 20, now we have laws about not to use particular trees if we by chance are going to put them up and worship them. But there's a little bit more to this. And it's not so much a binary way of looking at things. According to our rabbis, we're supposed to find a way to be righteous individuals while understanding the complexities of life. And most of us are not going to be building trees in order to make idols, but sometimes in our life, we will do things that prevent us from doing the Jewish stuff, that will circumvent, will prioritize the secular realm instead of the spiritual and Toradic realm. And something beautiful happened this week. And I made a promise to myself that when I came to BJBE, I would engage my colleagues in the rabbinic world. In San Diego, I was an assistant rabbi and then associate. No offense, Zach, there's not really much a difference. I see Rabbi Kadar over there. She's smiling. She gets it. But I never made a genuine effort to go meet my colleagues. And then in Birmingham, it was me. There were some Reform rabbis there who were not congregational rabbis, but it was lonely. So I wanted to be in Chicago Jewry because it matters to this congregation. And Rabbi Canali and I, we went to our first Chicago Board of Rabbis in Skokie. It was wonderful just to be around different clergy of the Jewish community, from the interim rabbi at Anshe Emet to Rabbi Canali's colleague at Niski. It was really a beautiful moment. And then my second lunch of that day, I met Rabbi Pupko at his favorite restaurant, Shallot's. And the kindness and true compassion and support he had for not just Orthodox rabbis, conservative rabbis, but for Reform rabbis, regardless of gender. And I could see the truth in his soul. And sooner or later, we started talking about the Rabbi. Now, there is a tension between modern Orthodoxy and Chabadnik. And there has been, and Rabbi Cannell, you could talk about his thesis, that the Lithuanian rabbis really didn't like the Hasidic rabbis. That's why the Vilna Gaon, he put them in excommunication, and a rise came, Chochmah Bina Da'at, the Chabad movement. But he sent me this before Shabbos, and it's kind of the same thing to me in our Torah portion. He was talking about Rabbi Soloveitchik, who is one of the greatest Torah scholars in our generation. And he was dedicated to Talmudic scholarship and philosophy, where he wanted Judaism to appeal to the intellectual elite who would then lean with the masses. And then on the other hand, the Lubavitcher Rebbe Schneerson, who was also brilliant in his own scholarship, sought relate to the Jewish people after the model of the Kohen, the priest, who is accessible to all rather than the model of the Melech, the Jewish monarch, who is accessible just to a few. And believe it or not, Rabbi Soloveitchik himself admitted this when he had to eulogize another Hasidic rabbi. So there is a tension between Lithuanian Judaism and Hasidic Judaism. But how that relates to our Torah portion is I don't think it's either or. Kind of like being a righteous person and trying to understand what kind of tree we're going to build in our lives. I think we're supposed to have a Judaism that is devoted to scholarship, intelligentsia, and after all, I've met so many Jews in this area, and one of the things they say about BJBE is not just its music, but its scholarship. And second, on the other hand, this is a joyful congregation. And in order to fortify the next generation of Jews, we have to do both. We have to do scholarship, and we have to do joyful. And we have to find a Judaism that relates to all people, all demographics, and wherever you need Judaism the most. So in this Elul, we celebrate our imperfections, and we strive to work on more righteous behavior without being self-righteous. And we also take time to plant the good trees. Those trees could be family dinners, taking a break from social media, hugging your child before they go off to college, doing the good things, stuff that makes us smile. And I think when we do both, we can bring God's presence into our lives. So keep on doing Torah and keep on smiling. Now move to our Torah service, which can be found on